Hello everyone, Dr. Russ here. So we're going to begin this part of the course that a lot of you might find unpleasant or challenging. This is the one time though when we look at basic research methods in developmental psychology. So I hope that you can turn in and get something out of this that will help you overall on understanding the importance of it and what the methods are. So let's consider, as we start thinking about this, an example of child rearing advice from the 1920s. So based on experts at that time, you'll see these quotes on the left are from well-respected publications citing well-respected researchers back in that time. The child rearing advice was never hug and kiss them, referring to the children. Never let the children sit on your lap. If you must, kiss them on the head when they say goodnight. Shake hands with them in the morning. Give them a pat on the head if they have made an extraordinarily good job of a difficult task. And the photo on the right is of Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt. Franklin, of course, was our president for a number of years in that time. And they took this advice seriously. And their children did not receive this kind of touch. The belief was that you would spoil the children and make them kind of whiny and demanding of attention. And of course, we know now that this advice isn't good advice. We know that, for example, touch is one of the most essential elements of human development, a profound method of communication, a critical component of the health and growth of infants, and a powerful healing force. This is by Bowlby and Harlow, researchers we will be studying this term. And another quote, ample research has demonstrated that tactile stimulation is extremely important for development and maintenance of physiological and psychological regulation in infants, children, and adults. Further, we know that when infants and human beings, in fact, have touch, the hormone oxytocin is released, which leads to feelings of attachment and safety in the people who experience the touch, that stress hormones are reduced, that cognitive and physical gains are made. In fact, Montague in 1971 postulates that, quote, parenting, and then texting here, this is from a different portion of his paper, relying heavily on impersonal child rearing aids such as infant carriers, bottles, pacifiers, strollers, swings, playpens, and cribs, which limit the child's experience of human soothing touch, produces individuals who are able to lead lonely, isolated lives with its materialistic values and its addiction to things. We know that without touch, there's a phenomenon called failure to thrive, in which infants don't even grow physically. And this is a case study we'll study later in the term about infants who were abandoned by their parents in Romania. We know that without touch, Harlow's work shows that insecure, anxious, neurotic, or even autistic-like behaviors occur in primates. Bowlby, another name we'll work with, finds that children have slowed recovery from illness. They don't get healthy as fast. And that children who are born prematurely have reduced gains in their development, in their health, and their ability to go home. So all of this is sent to you not because this chapter focuses on touch, but because, as you can see, the importance of touch was misunderstood at that early time. And so in order to know whether the advice we're getting is good, we have to have research and an understanding of research, and that's why we're focusing on it in this chapter. Heller, from the earlier quotation, also says, unfortunately, American babies and children are among the least touched on earth. I don't know if this is true of Navajo people. That's something that you can teach me this semester. So we need to understand research in order to know what to believe, what advice to take. Some of what we believe comes from our doctors and care providers, who certainly have expertise, but it's good for us to understand where it's coming from. We also get advice from newspaper headlines, like we might see headlines that say coffee causes cancer. Is that true? Always put your baby to sleep on his front or side or back. Is it true? Study before you sleep and you will remember it better. Is it true? To assess these headlines or the articles linked to them, we have to understand how the finding was gained. So understanding research gives you the capacity to judge what is good and bad advice or good and bad reporting. And it also helps you with critical thinking, evaluating what you hear and read for its credibility. So this is an image of a typical textbook, and the question is, where did all this information come from? Well, it came from peer-reviewed articles, meaning that scientists building on the work of other scientists conducted a study, and that if enough studies were present, the author of your textbook took those findings and put them in the textbook. And of course, science is always growing, it's always expanding, and new findings are always being found. That's the nature of science. And so even all of this being in the textbook doesn't prove anything. All it means is that right now, with our current research availability, there's no disconfirming evidence. We didn't find any studies showing that it wasn't true, so we believe it to be true at this time. We have confidence in the finding. But again, it doesn't prove anything, and we don't know ultimately the truth because science is always evolving. So let's just reflect a moment about the goals of developmental psychology. We want to describe human development or answer the what questions. What is typical development? What are individual differences? Or, an example that we'll be using throughout this content, what level of happiness do people have? Secondly, we want to explain human development. Why? Why do humans develop as they do? Why do some humans develop differently? Why are some people happier than others? And then we want to optimize human development. How? How can we help humans to meet their fullest potential? Or, using an example from our class, how can we assist humans in maximizing their happiness? So optimize means to bring out the best for people. And all of this is based on research. So this is the example we'll be using. Imagine you wanted to find out how happy certain people are. How could we do this? How could we find out how happy people are? And at this juncture, it might be nice, you're listening to this lecture online, it would be nice for me to have a way to ask you to respond to this. And maybe in the future, I'll be able to figure out how to do that. For now, I don't yet know. But think about that. How could you measure happiness? And so we are going to be talking about 3 research methods, and we'll be applying it to this example of happiness. First, we have the descriptive framework, which is focused on those what questions, gathering individuals from a sample of individuals about a particular topic. Secondly, we have correlational methods, answering questions about relationships between different phenomena represented by variables, but not showing causation. And finally, we'll have experimental methods, answering questions about causes of phenomena to determine whether one variable impacts another variable. And we will go into all of this at depth so you'll better understand what this is about.